Alright, so time is, what are we at? 5:34. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Sanford Rogers.
Sanford Rogers, present. Wayne Kresmian, present.
Stacy Boglovich, present.
Troy, what's Troy's last name?
Stinson.
Stinson, excused, and Kelsey absent.
I'll make a motion to excuse Troy.
Motion second.
I'd say any opposed? Okay, no opposed. Vote. Motion carries, right? There we go. Director disclosures.
Conflicts were filed 72 hours prior to the meeting.
Approval of the agenda.
Motion to
I'll
approve.
make a motion.
Have a motion.
Second.
Stacy second. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Approved agenda. Alright, so hello, welcome this evening. We can go ahead and stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alright, do we need any rules of conduct tonight, John?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, usually Troy just kind of says, hello everyone, thanks for showing up.
Oh, hi, thanks. Thanks for coming. I'm still midway. So, any public comments regarding current board business not on the agenda? Do we have any members from the public here tonight? Okay. All right. Moving on. DPR.
Do
Oop. Yeah.
Do we, Wayne?
No, there's no members from the public here tonight, and I don't think we have any online. Is that correct?
Just Stacy.
Just Stacy. Okay.
Okay.
So DPR ASR feasibility presentation from Kimberly Horn.
Appreciate you guys. Ready?
Yeah.
Ready? Back up a little bit. So, I've got, the whole team here today. So we'll make a few more introductions. And, we got your questions from our last, from the last meeting. And so we kind of sprinkled that kind of in the conversation, and you also have I think you have our memo response on that also.
Yeah, it's in my packet.
Thank you. So, but stop us for questions whenever. And you kind of heard a lot of this before, but the big thing I want to do is make sure you guys have to meet Brett and Dave here. So again, I'm Andrew Dixon, Kelly Horn, project manager on this project, and project manager on the wastewater treatment plant expansion project we're doing right now. Expansion study.
Yep, Katie Corfield, project engineer, and as y'all know, I live here, so I have every best interest of this project going well, as it directly benefits me.
My name is Dave Colvin. I'm with LRE Water. I'm a principal hydrogeologist and Rocky Mountain Regional Director there.
Brett Swiggle with WW Wheeler and Associates, Water Resource Engineer, specializing in water rights.
Perfect, thanks guys. Next slide. So I'll let Katie's gonna go over some background, because there's questions kind of about like horsepower consultants and that type of thing. So, wanted to bring Brett and Dave to show kind of the subs consultants are committed, they're here for the project, and we're ready to go on. And then also Katie's gonna get some background that on Kimberly Horn that was probably done when we did the wastewater treatment plant expansion proposal, but since there's new board members, kind of some more background on our firm and kind of how we're structured. So I'll let Katie jump into that.
Perfect. Yeah, so in general, Kimberly Horn, we have about 9,000 employees across the country, over 50, 60 offices, and 6 in Colorado. within Colorado, we have just about every discipline: general development services, water, wastewater, transportation, aviation, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the list goes on and on. So just wanted to kind of highlight the depth of knowledge and disciplines that we have specifically in Colorado. As we've been starting on the expansion plant project with Wally, he's already been able to see some of our other disciplines come in and support our project. We had an electrical site visit last week. So we've been able to pull different disciplines as needed to support our projects. Do you have anything
Next
else?
slide.
Walk away.
Not bad. Should get a bring it clicker. Better.
Just click on it. Yeah, this way. Look at it. Oh, there we go. That one.
Is that the one you want?
Yes, thank you. Also wanted to touch on some of our specific water and wastewater expertise firm-wide. So as I've said, we are able to pull from experts, subject matter experts, regardless of their office and state they may sit in. One thing that's pretty unique about Kimley Horn and how we're structured is we're, call it a one-profit center, and so we don't have to do any, inter-office or interstate agreements to be able to pull from teams in other offices. We just call them and say, hey, can we have some help on this project? And they're out here. We had Tim LeClaire fly in from Phoenix for our original kickoff site visit with Wally on the other project. We've had experts in Florida helping us get our modeling right. And so within water wastewater, we have a very big planning group, master planning, pipes, pumps, treatment, the whole range of all water and wastewater services.
Next slide.
And just want to highlight, this is our local Colorado water wastewater team. So I sit in Colorado Springs. Andrew sits in Denver in our Denver Tech Center office. And just wanted to highlight a couple unique staff members that we have. In Colorado Springs, Mackenzie, I'm just gonna come and point. Mackenzie here focuses on master planning, so she's helped communities, this size, cities. Both of these two came from our Texas offices, so they were able to have a wide variety of huge citywide projects to help support our growing Colorado team. Corey on our team is actually going to be certified to be a wastewater treatment plant operator and help the Wigwam district in starting next week for the next couple of months, as they've had some challenges keeping operators. And we have a lot of pilot programs and research going on with them right now for PFAS and things like that. Y'all know Andrew. Adam's been here before too. He's a jack of all trades. There really isn't a lot that Adam doesn't know, except for when it comes to treatment. He knows enough to hold a conversation and enough to know when to pass it to Andrew. And then Eric has also been here a couple times. He teaches at Hydraulic Institute. He's been a professor at Colorado School of Mines. He does lots of cutting edge research and pilot programs, and he knows all about advanced treatment technologies. And then who else? A wide variety. Chris will touch on later. Roger in Fort Collins, he used to be the Loveland Water Resources Engineering Manager, I think that was his title, for 20-30 years, and so he brings a great level of expertise in helping districts operate.
I just noticed something funny up there. Bob's face is on there twice,
Oh no.
but I think he looks, aged by 10 years, so they're trying to didn't realize they had him on.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Oh, wow. If you didn't point that
I didn't
out,
point
I
it
don't
out.
think I would have noticed.
I didn't notice.
To me, it was funny, but I feel like it's
Hard working America.
Bob's
Doesn't
been
bode
here
well
for
for
a long
the
time. I know. Well, we traded from Florida last year, so we'll say Florida did that.
Ah.
He's
Well,
now
wait,
much happier.
wait the sunshine.
in the yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna look like when this project's done.
Kid's gonna have old gray hair.
Oh, don't do that to me. I'm too young for that. Yeah, I mean, speaking of Bob, he's our expert modeler in Revit, and so we did the 3D scanning of the treatment plant. He's been helping us get that model integrated. Joel in Broomfield, he's also been here, another jack of all trades. Anything else you want to highlight from here?
No, that's good. You go to the next slide. So that we just kind of paint a picture. This is the slide you've seen before too on the Woodman Hills team in terms of the combination of people working on the Woodman Hills Space Study project and then the ones that are going to integrate into this project. I think the two things I want to do here is let, Brett and Dave introduced themselves already, so I think in a second they'll kind of go over their scope of work specifically and really give them a minute to talk about that. This is generally the team. So seen that before. You can go to the next slide. So again, why we're here today, right? We're talking about long-term goals and the rules and regs. So around physical neutral water supply, those goals are laid out on a 2020 to 2050 timeline, 40 to 70% of physical neutral water supply. Our goal here today, what we're trying to do is, give the district a path to meet those goals, but also give them a realistic truthing of those goals to say, hey, what should those goals really be? That's one of the objectives. Renewable available sources, we've had the discussion around new surface water rights, limited based on availability, but there's also reusing existing supplies. So that's what's available, and that's what we're looking at as the focus of the study. So direct potable reuse, and then aquifer storage recovery, ASR, or indirect and long-term storage. If you go to the next slide, I think I have the terms again. So again, like background terms for everyone, traditional treated wastewater is released in stream. There's an environmental buffer there where the water, is put into the stream based off the limits that the state gives you, but then all the other contributing factors from the environment are now entering that stream too, whether that be downstream agriculture, the sediment in the stream, etc. It's picked up, and then obviously it's picked up downstream by other entities or even the same entities, and treated further for future water supply or water supply use. Indirect potable reuse, when we talk about that terminology, that's kind of industry terminology we come up with to say we continue to use an environmental buffer, but we make the acknowledgement that we're sending water downstream and reusing our available water supplies. And we've got an additional treatment at point of intake. And then direct potable reuse, that involves the removal of the environmental buffer and immediate additional treatment to bring that water to the EPA and the state's drinking water quality standards. And then aquifer storage and recovery involves storing water in the aquifer in times of abundance for use in times of lacking. Next slide.
Oh.
I think we skipped one. Okay, your turn.
So once again, my name is Dave Colvin, and I work with all types of groundwater. Today, we're talking about reuse and aquifer storage and recovery. And we've worked throughout Colorado and throughout the West actually on reuse projects. We're working on the Aurora's Prairie Water System, which is a big reuse system here in Colorado. And then we've worked with other entities for developing new aquifer storage and recovery where there's no wells at all. We've worked on retrofitting existing wells, and the example up here is with Castle Rock. We've done a lot of work on really optimizing their system so that they can use aquifer storage and recovery, and that's kind of a stepping stone to water reuse for them. So for those water reuse projects, we've done what we call riverbank filtration, which is that environmental buffer that Andrew was talking about is basically taking river water out through wells and using that as a pre-filter or a pre-treatment. And so we've done that through Texas and many places here in Colorado as well. So that's why I'm here, is to talk groundwater. If anyone has any questions or comments.
Next slide. So with that, like Kinley Horn's, scope of work focuses on the organization here, but also the treatment technology. So again, this is highlighting a lot of our kind of recent project experience. We've got the Wigwam trailer going out in southern Colorado Springs and Wigwam, South of Fountain. That's going to be advanced water treatment for PFAS, chlorides, TDS removal, looking at electrocoagulation membranes and GAC and ion exchange. So, and then Chris Bologna is chief PFAS technologist with us, and trace chemicals and things like that. So all experience that goes in hand. We talk about GPR and prioritizing planning for projects for districts. The next slide, we're going to get into the scope of work and reviewing kind of what's before the board today. So we've broken this up into 3 phases. The first is our preliminary evaluation phase. So our first step there is our data review and collection. That's additional data review, which we've kind of started with some of the other work, but that's looking at the water system, the wells, the available water quality data, seeing what else may be needed there, and working with your staff here to go through that. And then we get into the water supply, or kind of alongside that, we get into the water supply evaluation that Brett's working on. So I'll let him talk about that.
Yeah, well, just grateful for the opportunity to get the call from Andrew here. Have kind of a long background with the district in terms of working with them on their under drain system and the replacement plan that's required with that. So we got very familiar with the water supply, water rights used by the district, and worked with Wayne Foreman to get that replacement plan done. And I think that started mid-2000s, kind of started on that, and we got it done about 10 years later. And still do ongoing accounting for that. But it's given me a good feel for the water rights possessed by the district. Really heavily focused on Denver Basin supply, with some overdeal supply and surface water rights. So my task would be to basically look at these sources and determine basically the amount of use that's coming out of the treatment plant that's attributable to these different sources, and what sources are available for potentially these reuse projects. So my understanding is those will be kind of starting points for design basis numbers for the reuse program.
And the other thing we want to have them help answer to is if there's kind of this, there's not putting some meat to the whole, like what water is available out there from the reuse perspective, and just kind of have the conversation in the report in terms of the limited available sources, what is available, what potential costs, impacts, or costs could be there. So we have some planning costs to compare against. We talk about, okay, it costs X to implement, a reuse option here.
And is that's phase 2, as I kind of understand
Yeah,
a little bit,
right,
but
yeah.
but obviously another component of what I'll be looking.
So also in phase 1, hydrogeologic evaluation, your scope of work.
Yeah, so basically starting with what Brett was talking about with the Denver Basin supplies, we can look at building on the data that's available from the pumping wells, how they could possibly be used for storage, and coming up with estimates of how much water can be stored, working with the water rights to see when that water would be available, and then coming up into the more shallow system with the designated basin. There's opportunities for aquifer storage and recovery in the shallow alluvium there, and that can be either a replacement plan, probably similar to the under drain, or a new program that's working with the wastewater treatment too. So lots of options there to be explored with the groundwater storage options.
Yeah, and a lot of the data you're getting then is data that's also good for future design phases and things
Absolutely,
like that.
yeah. So what we're doing is not just another study, it's basically pre-design, starts to get at kind of conceptual, yields and injection rates, and ultimately goes into design of these systems.
So from their scope of works, we're also looking at, benchmarking discussion in this phase. That's really here to say, what are other utilities, what are other districts, what are cities, communities doing in Colorado around this? I was actually just at the Rocky Mountain Water Conference, which is the water wastewater conference for the state and the region. And, I moderated a session where, folks actually gave updates on kind of where Aurora is on this, where Plum Creek and Castle Rock are on this. And so those are the kind of inputs we're gonna take and go further out to just talk to some other entities and get their kind of feedback on the process, what they've learned and all that. And so I think that's a really good step to have a lot of great conversations to really form for the districts a status of who else is doing it, so it's not like we're paving this path on our own, even though this is not a new conversation to say, because we've been talking about it for a long time, but it's gaining more momentum than it's ever gained before in terms of the restrictions that are pushing people in this direction.
Andrew, is there a singular firm or specialist that is working with all of those entities, or is everybody kind of doing their own iteration? Like Kimley Horn's doing this for us, XYZ engineering firm did Castle Rock, XYZ did Aurora. Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think there's several firms that are working on it.
But is there
So
any
in that
person or
conversation,
firm that's a cohesive unit between all of them? Like, is there a hydrogeologist that is kind of been involved, or a treatment specialist that's been involved in a lot of these projects?
well, I'll say, so WRCO, Water Reuse Colorado, is kind of like the nonprofit wing that's organized a lot of these conversations. And so several of those members, like Corollo's had a big impact in that, has done studies and stuff. But I think Corollo's probably done the most studies from like a regional perspective in terms of how this gets implemented in the state. So they've done studies for WRCO, they've done studies for Aurora, kind of all on the planning side of things. But then everybody else has kind of done various, engineering studies, designs, or preliminary designs, kind of from, so like in the DPR session, let's see, Corollo, Jacobs, Burns and Mac, I can't remember the fourth, they all presented kind of on their ongoing projects. So, I think everyone's working on it. I think what's going really well right now at DPR is everyone's kind of in this place where like, we're not so sure we're all learning how this is gonna get implemented, so we're all talking to each other, which is really beneficial. And that was kind of
So there's a willingness to share ideas.
Yeah.
Because at least what I have found in my early career in water is no one on the water side at least really likes to talk to each other, because water is so important, right? It's like when you shop for water, you never shop with your name tied to it. It's like blind auctioning off. But I'm just wondering, with this type of project and how new it is to the state and how few projects there are, is there that cohesiveness or willingness to share ideas and save the taxpayers of Colorado some time, some money?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I've seen the collaborative nature that Andrew's talking about with reuse is kind of interesting, because it is this conversation with CDPHE, and it's basically, trying to pull CDPHE off of, no, we can't do this because we're too scared. Well, all these firms coming up with, evidence that it is safe and it is something that we absolutely need to do. And so I think that conversation has been very open and transparent because we all know it's coming. And so it's not as competitive as, no offense, but the water rights world. It sounds like what you're talking about,
Yeah.
where it's like, no, I'm not gonna tell you what I've got because
Right.
I don't want you to know. But I think reuse is a very different conversation.
Yeah, and I would say like so in 2022, we had the stakeholder meetings around the Regulation 11 development around drug total reuse, which is the state regulations for it, that everyone's now figuring out, okay, how do we comply our projects around it? But CPHD does those by putting out stakeholder meetings, engagement meetings, there's technical sessions. And so I was involved in that, and like everyone like had, someone there from a firm perspective. So that's like the kind of collaboration that came out in the development of those regs kind of continues on afterwards too, because we're trying to bring the state along, and even some of those regs we came up with the state, like 12 months of profiling, these trace chemicals of concern, and then showing those trace markers and how you treat for them. Like even that whole process is something now everyone's like, wait, how are we actually going to do that? How do we identify what those chemicals are? How do we identify those trace markers? So like a lot of the stuff we're going to get to is getting that strategy from other people and then putting it in here, or the strategy from ourselves and our development, putting it in here and saying, these are the things the district needs to consider in future design phases when planning this work out.
Especially, the economies of scale, yes, right?
Yeah.
But I look at it from really purely a financial perspective, right? It's a big barrier for other smaller water districts, right? Like we have 2 smaller water districts out here. There's no way they could ever afford to try to even just do the engineering that we're doing on this project, much less actually institute this type of program. So like, how do we make it more affordable at the end of the day for the taxpayers of Colorado? Like I want to make it as affordable for Woodland Hills as I can, right? That's my obligation. But I think it can go and transcend beyond that. And how can we make something collectively that can work for everybody within the state of Colorado?
Right.
You done?
And I think our phase 3, there's kind of a point there where we could kind of start to get to that. Phase 1 preliminary evaluation workshop, that's the workshop where we kind of, lay out the findings here, and plan out our phase 2. So if you go to phase 2 now, we're reviewing the ASR alternatives provided by LRE. We're evaluating DPR alternatives in terms of progressing the level of treatment that would be recommended on the expansion study, discussing kind of discussing what's required forward, developing some of those process trains, talking about permitting implications, timelines, stakeholder engagement requirements, water quality testing requirements, and giving the district the path on saying, hey, here's the path to get to a DPL alternative, and then looking at the long-term cost planning. So that's, the class 5 cost estimates on what does that cost, the operational cost, comparing that against physical water supply values. Is the district's got to get the water somewhere? How does this additional treatment or these ASR alternatives pair to buying the water if it is available? Obviously, if that water is available, we're going to look at some quick numbers too. If you got to ship it 15 miles with 2 pump stations and 2 tanks, that's got to be our cost evaluated too, right? And how does that compare with other regional entities' published plans, i.e. the big guy in the room? See the shoe. So that's phase 2, and then phase 3. That's the study, and then phase 3 is the implementation plan, and district, here's your plan forward. So we're going to have a goals workshop to say what can those renewable water supply goals are in the district rules and regs, what's reasonable for the future based off these values and costs we have. A coordination plan for your contributing entities. So this gets to the question of this is a lot for Woodman to take on, right? But if there's reusable water supplies from your neighboring districts that they're sending to you, and you have the physical supply, at your discharge, then what's your plan to evaluate and utilize their sources and give you guys kind of steps on how to engage them in that process to do that cost sharing discussion. And then ultimately you're kind of, once we have those two kind of conversations, then we create a long-term implementation plan on a timeline of what it would look like and when the district would need to implement the selected alternatives for those water supply goals or your demand goals too. So that's the scope of work. Maybe we should stop a couple times, but I'll stop there and kind of say, ask if there's any questions from that. I think we have one more slide that's scheduled, but you guys have seen that, so.
No, I'm fine.
Project timeline, we just pushed it back a month because we pushed it back a month based off approval, so we have this lining up in first phase in the fall, getting into the second phase in the winter, and then the third phase in the spring. We're getting into engineering evaluation right now with the expansion study. So this will line up well because by the time November gets here, we'll have the alternatives laid out for the technologies for the wastewater plant. So then we can get straight into phase 2 conversations of, okay, where do we take the water from that point of discharge? So it's lining out well with the expanded study and how the extra testing and kind of things we progress.
I just wondered, from the timeline and such, and I appreciate the presentation very much, anything that would impact the timeline, that, things that would throw it off course from what you've experienced in the past or what you can potentially anticipate?
I think that the probably the obvious, or not the obvious, but the most, the one that maybe is water quality testing. So we have to kind of spend some time thinking about that and defining that. We're going to do that pretty early, but this is a feasibility study. It's not a design level, so that water quality testing will be kind of fairly small. A couple samples, a couple wells, probably a couple sources. So, once we kind of get with the team and say, hey, this is what we need, then it's a matter of sending things off to labs. So, I think in this case, we can manage that with the schedule. Sometimes with design, if you need several months, so, then that pushes out. But we're going to kind of have initial testing, and then a lot of the scope work is going to say, and if these designs move forward, here's all the other testing that's got to be required to meet the state regs, which is like a 12-month program. So, yeah, that's the biggest one. I don't know, Katie, what do you think? I think in this case, on the wastewater side, trying to talk to the water quality permitting people and getting them to call you back is very challenging. On the drinking water side, they're way more responsive. And so I think the state will, when we want to talk to the state about some of these ideas and coordinate with them on this, they'll be pretty responsive to us. Tyson Ingalls is the guy, he's the division manager for the drinking water section. He's also the one who put the DPR program together. So when you tell him you want to talk about DPR, he's like, oh yeah. He spent a lot of time on these regs.
They talk about wastewater permits and crickets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sort of what?
Yeah.
Alright. Did you want to go over these questions and answers that the board had from last time?
I feel like I answered them in the presentation, but if I didn't, let me know and we can go over any of them. But
I don't have any questions.
so that was all. Anything else from either of you?
Sounds good.
That's what we got. So we appreciate your guys' consideration on this. You know, I think, it's cool to be around the conference and hear everyone talking about this and hearing the entities, pushing forward, and I think, you know, for Woodman Hills, you know, to be a district that says, hey, we've thought this out on what it means for a small district, that'll help that conversation of like, how does this, everyone learn together too? And, you know, and we can learn from the larger entities too, Lake Plum, Creek and Cops Rock and things like that, so. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take some pizza, if you guys want pizza.
I might take you up on that.
There's some brownies back there too.
They're absolutely terrible, don't
Yeah,
they?
go ahead. As a matter of fact, leave your brownies away.
Thank you.
Andrew.
Appreciate it, JD.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Brett.
Hey, Brett.
Brett, when I should see you,
Yeah.
know what you look like?
Right.
Come out here in the middle of the street and take measurements and
Yeah.
get it all better.
Thanks, guys.
Send back information every month to Brett.
Say, if they need help with water quality testing, do you have some guy going door to door offering those services?
That's true.
Maybe him involved?
We could just contract with that guy.
Glad I'm not home during the day.
It's probably not licensed. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Save costs somewhere.
We'll do that in out of
Yeah. Now, what we're going to do, oh, no, that's not here.
That's
Okay.
later.
I was like, wait a minute, that's not what I have. Alright, so, consent agenda, do I need to read that one, John? Or is that?
You don't have to read it out loud,
Okay.
and you are free to, the board is free to alter it as they see fit. So if there's something on there you want to discuss, you can discuss it. If there's something you want to completely pull off because you don't want to approve it, you can do that as well.
Okay.
Or you can approve everything in one fell swoop.
Reading through some of the stuff that I've seen before. Anything from the consent?
No. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion second.
I have a second. Any opposed? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries, consent agenda is approved as written. Discussion of DR Horton contract termination with Grandview Reserve Metropolitan District contract assumption.
Yep, so in the packet, there was a, Joe Orton did, finally give us a final notice of termination on their Grandview agreement for sewer service. Under the conditions of the IGA, it also allowed 30 days for Grandview Reserve, who actually controls or owns property. 30 days to the right of assumption to take over Joe Orton's agreement. They came to us 3 weeks into their 4 weeks, and they would like to extend the time from 60 days, which would have been September 3rd, to 90 days, which would push them out to November 3rd. Try and find somebody that could possibly take that development over and come up with the money to be able to pick up on this contract. So that's what the document is, they're asking for change that from 30 days to 90 days. So
What is the likelihood that they're gonna be able to fulfill that with 60 extra days?
thank you, Stacy.
Well, no.
Slim to none.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's a concern we have too. We're not quite sure why they asked for that extra 60 days, because they kind of ran circles a little bit when they talked to us about it, that they're looking for someone to take that development over, buy it, come up with the money. But D.R. Horton still owns a substantial portion of that, and our understanding is D.R. Horton is not interested in selling any of their property right now. So considering it took us 2.5 years to get this agreement together, for 2 months to try and find a buyer, get everybody on the same page, make something happen is I might as well go to 7-Eleven and buy some lottery tickets.
Is it costing us anything to extend that contract by 60 days? Other than the time?
The only things affecting potentially would be with Kinley Horn for, figuring out what the capacity of the plant's gonna be. Because if they can model everything and have it done before then, say we're going to this number. Again, right now, we're kind of moving forward, expecting there is no Grandview coming.
And I believe this is ready for approval of the board too, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So if the board's good with it, feel free to.
Yeah,
make
the
a
same
motion.
water attorneys put the original Grandview development together, went through this with their attorneys, and put this together, so.
Any discussion from the board about this one?
So, yeah, I do have stuff on this one. So Wally, explain it to me, dumb it down for me. Why are we extending it 60 days?
Kind of a good question. I'm gonna say it's probably more out of professional courtesy. Face to face, it's kind of a weird conversation to have because I think they want to make something happen, and without a sewer agreement, they're dead in the water. We also on the back end, they don't have any water to give out to development. So, without coming out and kind of calling them liars, I think it's just our way of kind of throwing an olive branch out there to. Yeah, we'll give you a little time if you need it. Even on the back of my mind, we know that it's a useless thing.
So what do you think is gonna happen after 60 days?
They come up with nothing, it
expires.
if they don't even communicate with us as of November 3rd, the Grandview agreement is officially terminated.
Okay.
No longer exists.
If for some reason, and Wally and I have had a lot of discussions about this, they had a big fish, right, that was out there that had the cash, that you just could swoop in and just be like, here you go, here's a bunch of money, I'm gonna assume all these agreements, I'm gonna buy this. That would be in our best interest. Because Grandview and D.R. Horton specifically backing out was a big hit to the district, both financially, now with the wastewater upgrade plant, and into the future, because we now lose the doubling of our wastewater customers. So, yes, it's professional courtesy, that, like Wally said, but it also, if there is an opportunity for someone to be able to come in, and we give Grandview Reserve that ability to try to find that person, it benefits us. And it really, honestly, it benefits Waterbury as well. Because then they don't have to make the plans that they're making today to go in and alone and do their own projects. Because they can rely on this new partner coming in to put in the regional lift station and the force main, the gravity lines, and all of that. So it would actually be a great thing if someone came in. Our discussion is, D.R. Horton is the #1 home builder in the United States. Not Colorado, the United States. If they couldn't figure this out, I have a hard time thinking anybody else will. Now, we have ideas, right?
Digress on that. So you could have, they did kind of hint at a possible national builder. So looking it up, like this Meritage Homes, they're national, they're building around here. If they had the cash and capital to do it, but again, water is the issue. So there is a chance that if there were somebody that's here local, the D.R. Horton's not really local, they didn't understand this area. But someone like Meritage might come in and look like, all right, you get X number of acre feet of water we can use. They build the development around that.
Yes.
Now it makes sense, and it'd be scaled down. It wouldn't be 3,500 homes, but they might be able to do 1,700, which would still be a benefit to everybody. But they have a very small window of time.
And they're still holding the other property around that area, correct?
Right. The property ownership.
I mean, it's not a 0% chance, but it's. pulling them away, it's like, well, give them 60 days, see what they got.
I think, to what Wally's saying is if they're, and we don't know how they're marketing this, the property owners, right? If they're marketing it as this development is X homes, right? And that's what we want you to do, that's not gonna fly in the time frame. But I think if they are smart enough to negotiate, like Wally is saying, and go with, build what you have the water rights for, that you know you have. And here's all the data, because we've provided, I can't even tell you how many reports on this to them that they could use in that negotiation. You could get a deal done. It would be tight. It would be extremely tight. But I think
But even if you had something inked or at least a commitment of some kind,
right,
that would be worth continuing even farther down the road. But yeah, they got 60 days to get a lot of work accomplished.
yeah, 45 days comes in, and let's say Meritage comes to the table and they've got a deal ready, signed on their two parts, and they're ready to talk to us. We may be willing to come back to you guys and be like, hey, let's give them another 2 months. Let's figure it out, right? That's possible.
Again, we don't want to push them back them up against the wall either, because it's a lot to take on. But
without us, that property will never be developed, because you will not be able to get wastewater service any other way. And the county is definitely not gonna let you put that many septic fields in. Not gonna happen. So everything in that area hinges on our ability and our willingness to serve.
You just had to put that in there for the public service people, didn't you, Carter?
I thought the little blue light went out. Anything else, Stacy?
No.
Okay.
Good enough.
Alright, so if there's no other discussion on it, I guess we're looking for a motion one way or the other.
I'll make a motion to extend an additional 60 days.
Motion second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table. Any opposed? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. So 60-day extension. John, your turn.
Perfect. It's your turn to report, so I will, since Kelsey's not here to read every item, I will just open it to the floor.
She's gonna see that in a minute.
We'll see. But no, I'm happy to field any questions regarding any of the items on the attorney report.
E-Visions?
I don't have any.
E-Vision?
Working with enterprise directors on E-Visions.
Oh, look at that.
Revisions.
Oh, no.
Come on.
Oh, lame. All
Spelling
right.
and grammar.
Spell check getting words that
Taking
exist.
15 minutes off of your next invoice.
I'll take a point one off, that's fine.
That's quite generous.
Was that 6 bucks? Alright. Do we need to accept you?
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
nothing, if there's no further questions, we move to the next item, otherwise like I said, I'm happy to discuss anything.
I'm good.
The car wash demand letter, I think that is a big thing that we probably should talk about with the board.
Okay.
I know we talked a little bit about it kind of before the meeting, but just to clarify for the board, we have been going back and forth internally and externally with our Superstar Car Wash client about the amount of water that they are engineered to use versus actual. And our calculations come to that they're using a significant amount more than what they are engineered to use. So the only thing that we can come up with is that the reclaim system is not working. And that it's just cheaper for them to just buy water from us than it is to do whatever is necessary to get that system to actually function. The reason we also think that is that we've seen this before. In our other hand wash, car wash that also has one automatic bay, they had a very similar to a very similar situation where their reclaim system wasn't working for a number of months, and it was a back and forth between the district and them to get it fixed, and they finally got it fixed. The difference here is that JD and I actually did a little field trip to the car wash. We went and looked at our devices that are there. We want to make sure everything is working properly, because the last thing you want to do is cause a big hubbub and then come to find out it was an error on our part.
Right.
So we've done all of that due diligence, and while we were there, we talked to the site supervisor. The general manager wasn't there, and gave him our business card, said, hey, please make sure your general manager calls us. We need to talk to them right away. He then emailed me a couple days later saying, hey, the guys showed up, sorry I wasn't there, here you want to talk to me? I was like, yes, we need to talk about your engineer demand versus your actual demand, because something is wrong. And said, hey, we can meet, let us know when you can meet the following week. All right, well, a couple days goes by, haven't heard anything. I reached back out saying, hey, we now have availability to speak these days at these times. Please let me know when you're available. So not only was the general manager of the site on this email, but also his boss, who's the regional manager. Neither of them have said anything to us. So that then took JD and I to start working with John on what are our legal options. In the rules and regulations, there are actually a couple different options that we can take. One of them is the option that we have looked at, which essentially is a demand letter saying, you will have, upon receipt of this letter, you will have X amount of days to request a meeting with us to get this resolved. And if it's not resolved by this amount of time from that meeting, we are shutting your water off completely. We don't typically like to do that with any commercial customer, but in this sense, because they are posing a huge strain on the system and it's causing issues for the rest of the water district, it's the acceptable response. So that's where we're at. We have the letters drafted. We have an amendment to add to that letter that has a table that I've created that kind of shows their actuals versus design so they can see for themselves. The data doesn't lie, right? It is what it is. This is where you're at. This is what we see. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is get them to come to the table. We've tried physically going there. We've tried reaching out via email. They're not responsive. So the only recourse we have left is legal.
I know you guys weren't here, but was that 8-9 months ago? We actually, wastewater operators and our inspector went out and put in a flow meter on their system, and yeah, the numbers matched pretty close to what was coming in and what was going out, so. But our numbers are pretty solid.
Is there anything we can put out there included in that letter or follow-up if they come to the table with the, I don't know if demand is quite the right term, but they must have some sort of a certified third party verify and certify their system is functioning correctly.
We've talked about that, so that would be one of the course of actions that we will request in that meeting is like, A, you need to get this working and you need to prove it to us. Not only do you need to prove it to us now, but every month you need to prove it to us, one way or another, that it's working and that you are continuing to make sure it works. Otherwise, we will have cure methods that you're not gonna like.
Yeah.
So it's not that we don't wanna serve them, right? And it's not that they're not paying their bill, because they're paying their bill. And it's a lot of money that they're paying. But that's not the point of a water district. It's not just to take money just because you can. It's about the water conservation, number one. Number two, if we make a commitment to an entity that says, hey, you're only supposed to have 12, let's say 12 SFEs worth of water, that commitment goes to the county, goes to the state, our regulators, right, and says this is what we have committed. So our books and our portfolio get all messed up when you're using 3 or 4 or 5 times that amount. Now that becomes a problem when JD wants to serve another customer and it's like, well, technically on paper I could, but in actuality I can't because we have these issues with these customers.
Do we know if, you know, if they, other sites, and are they experiencing the same issue at other sites?
That, so I don't know if you heard that, I was talking to Katie.
We'll find out.
They're, our friends at Kimley Horn are gonna try to help us see if there's anybody else that's dealing with this, because there's a lot of car washes in this area, right? I mean, a lot of different companies. We don't have anything else to go off of other than the old legacy car wash that we've had in the district for a long time. So we have nothing to compare to. That's why we are looking for partnerships outside our district to say, is anybody else going through this?
Right.
I mean, how are you dealing with it? The issue is the biggest entity being Colorado Springs Utilities. I worked with them in other projects, and I've reached out to a senior water engineer, and they're unable to give me any information. So we have to do it in a roundabout way, and that's where Q can work. So we'll try to find out how this is happening across the city, but I mean, it feels like every time you go down the street, it's like a new car wash is popping up on every corner. So I can't imagine we're the only water district in this area that is having this problem.
Right.
I guess, what are you looking for?
Nothing,
from us?
I've just,
Okay,
it's
just information.
FYI,
Okay,
letting
got
you
it.
know
Yeah,
that
good
this is
background.
gonna go out, and we don't know how it's gonna go, but again, I just wanna reiterate, our goal is not to shut them off. Our goal is to get them to come to the table, come talk to us. We want to be a good partner with you. You're not being a good partner, so we need to correct that.
What is the end result if they come back with their test saying, yes, the system's functioning, they're just servicing 3 times as many vehicles as initially?
If the,
I don't think that's going to be the
the
case.
math is
but-
not, there's no way that math works.
Okay.
But if, let's say, hypothetically, that's true, then as part of a larger reconciliation project that JD and I have been working on with Falcon Marketplace in particular, is that project is over allocated water from a commitment perspective. So I've been working with the developer to try to correct that. So if, let's say, that does come back and it's true, right? You really are using that water, and they really do have a reclaim system that's functioning, it's gonna cost them a significant amount of money in water acquisition fees. And that's really the only thing that would be hit with. Something that the previous board has talked about is, do we implement a different tier structure for these types of high volume water customers? And the more you use over a certain amount of gallons, it just gets exponentially more expensive. So there is a way that the board can limit the exposure and their usage by implementing fees. Because today there's a 2-tiered system, but that's it. And so the second tier, while yeah, it can be expensive, it's not catastrophic.
But if they're continuously going above and way beyond what it sounds like of even that second tier.
So one thing we've talked about is for those entities that go over their water commitment. So using my example, let's say you have a commitment of 12 SFEs. If you go over that, every gallon in the year that's over your commitment equates to a new fee. And that fee is going to be really expensive. So you can tie it to, let's say, our water acquisition fee. So it's over $12,000 per SFE. So you can say, you could take that and create a per gallon what that fee would look like, and that's what they would now have to pay. So instead of paying, let's say $16,000 a month, maybe they're paying $25,000 a month, $30,000 a month. That might get them to figure out how to get that system to work. So there's a couple different options. You know, obviously we're trying this demand letter first, and the secondary option fees is something we can talk about later this year as we get into the budget season. If that's really something that you want to see me develop, we can look into that. I would say this is the only entity we have this problem with. So I don't know how much effort the board wants me to put into doing something like this if we only have one person that's causing this issue.
I guess my curiosity on that side would be is what is the projected of potentially another one of these popping up as we continue to build? So I mean, if we put that,
Yeah.
if we put that out there already, they like it or they don't, but they're walking into it knowing that those fees are now there.
I think the way you head that off is in the EDAR, when their project comes to review, you could ask a stipulation of the engineering system, of the percentages, have them prove all the work ahead of time. And then, at that point, you can say yes or no.
You're in EDARP?
Yes, I review those.
Perfect.
And that way, there's not a liability on the district as what we're dealing with right now.
I'll note too that, you know, the method we're going through this is actually not designed for commercial entities, it's designed for residential customers. You know, notice and termination and opportunity for a hearing is really along the lines of a due diligence constitutional issue. Quite literally, we're about to shut off your water as a homeowner. It's not designed for sophisticated entities who are well aware of what the rules are, have attorneys, have a corporate structure, and can find ways to address problems if they actually want to. So I think we're, you know, going above and beyond what's actually required. There's no requirement for a hearing or anything, but district standard process allows for it. So we're sending a notice of termination of service. It'll give them a set period to contact the district and open up discussions, and then the water shut off would happen after that. So they have plenty of time to address this, and you know, like I said, these are sophisticated entities. These aren't your normal homeowners that we're concerned about generally when we put these types of provisions in the rules.
What's the time frame from data receipt to shut off if they don't contact?
10 days, I believe.
Okay.
And that's 3 days for mailing as well.
Essentially 14 days. So the moment we send out the letter, they'll have 14 business days to respond. And that's scheduled essentially to me. If they don't respond in that 14 days, then we will be going out there and shutting their water off.
Yeah, I think it's 3 days for mailing, 10 days for response, and then day 14 is termination day.
The T handle goes out. Got it.
And Wayne's phone's gonna light up.
I use Mr.
We hope it doesn't get there.
No, I agree with you. I hope it doesn't, and I hope they can find whatever's wrong with their system and get it corrected. But perfect. Appreciate the update. Or
Just
the loop on that one, because you're right.
It's a
Mike
big
will
deal.
probably.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of a piggyback on that one with the grease traps. We've never had a good program in place for this, and we've been doing inspections a lot more, and we actually had 6 businesses that failed, and most of them came back around, got the stuff cleaned out, and we had 3 that struggled with it, so one of them was Safeway. So, again, talking to John about this, it actually says in our rules, bylaws, if you fail, we went through all the steps, notifying you 3 times. That 3rd time, we had 10 days that we would pump it out on Woodman Hills cost, and then turn around and bill them for 1.5 times that cost. I worked with Safeway and people that pumped theirs out, actually came in at 4 in the morning and watched them actually pump it out properly, showed them this is how it's supposed to be done. So we had 2 that did not, so Wendy's and Pizza Hut did not. So Pizza always still have to get pumped out. Wendy's we did, so they should be giving them a bill for 1.5 times. Just trying to send a message that, you know, we need this, I mean, we're gonna put a lot of money in a new wastewater plant. Can't be having grease and stuff going in. So, I think the mission was kind of a difficult one, the guy was quite irritated at us about it. But, I mean, you could tell there was grease in there, it had to be 3-4 years old, it hadn't been pumped out, so. What I've been trying to explain to him is it obviously is a benefit for us, we can't have that grease, but it's a benefit to you, you're paying these people $500. And some of them, you can see right through the grease, it's just a hole where they stuck their tube in, sucked the water out, and left. That's not the purpose of a grease trap. So it's been educational for these people too, so they've kind of calmed down and realized that we're helping them too at the same time, so.
Right.
Is that a tiered process of, let's say, that they're like, man, we'll just pay them to do it, 1.5 times to do it each time, is that a tiered process where, okay, this is second offense, now it's.
It's funny, I don't think we address repeat offenders.
Is it, I can't remember, is there a multiplier on that? Is it, what, I thought it was just basically district does it, bills them for it, and then if they don't pay it, it won't be a, I don't think there's any sort of tiered system on it. The only explanation would be if they decide they wanna really fight it and don't wanna pay that bill, then we basically add it to their property taxes during our certification process in the year, and then the county's gonna add 30% for that collection process.
Got it.
Yeah, so
If they don't pay that in 3 years, then.
Yeah, so
it's
Kurt,
property.
Yeah.
Kurt brought up a good point, so 3 times we give them a failure, generally they call right around the same company and have them come out and pump it again. We come out 2 days later, it's like, still isn't done right. They get mad, they call the company again, so they've already got $1,500 wrapped up in this thing before we come along and charge them $800-900, so.
Gotcha.
And hopefully you just only have to do that a couple times, people get the point across. And the one company, it's tends to be a repeat offender that services a lot of the places around here. And as regional manager, not happy with me, cause he kept telling me, well, you can't tell me where I can't do business. And I'm like, no, I can't. But I can also tell you that after all these places spend this much money, you're not doing a right job for them, they're gonna find someone else. I don't have to tell them.
It touches our system, correct?
Yeah.
So it touches the wastewater system, so
Yep.
no longer allowed to touch.
Yep.
Okay.
So we take them enforcement action the last month and we'll push back, but it's gone alright.
Good.
We're sheriffs in town. That's right.
The delinquent accounts on here, is that residential?
So,
Sewer only, but
Sewer
yeah.
only, okay.
Yeah, resident. Well, it could be commercial, technically. A lot,
could technically be water
most
too.
of the time, you don't have commercial clients that don't pay.
yeah,
There's
this,
ways to get around that.
yeah, like Carter said, so this was, kind of a little bit of background in this. As a water and sanitation district, this district, has kind of this superpower where if a debt is owed to the district for water and sanitation fees, kind of like the wastewater clean out of the grease traps, things like that. So for our services, if those bills aren't paid, we have the power to turn those accounts over to the county, and the county will actually add that to the property owner's property tax roll for collection next year. So what I was working with Carter's office on, basically just kind of figuring out what the plan is to address delinquent accounts. As Carter noted, it's technically you can do water and wastewater, but with water, you can shut it off. So most people pay their water bill once it's shut off. You can't do that with wastewater. So as far as certifications go, I don't know if the district's ever even certified a water account. It's probably exclusively wastewater. Yeah, and for these, it's mostly out of district extraterritorial wastewater accounts.
It's
So-
all,
Paintbrush.
It's all-
it's all paintbrush and Falcon Islands.
Got it.
Because anybody inside the district, you just shut their water off.
Yep.
Yeah, cause you have both sides.
Right,
Yep.
exactly.
You can't produce wastewater if you can't have, don't have
Yeah.
water.
And we try to explain to the ones that we can communicate with that doing it this way, while sure, if that's the road you wanna go, you can do it, it's expensive because the county adds a 20 to 25%
30%.
Okay.
Okay.
So if you had a $1,000 bill, you now have a $1,300 bill.
Plus
Yeah.
any cost of collection.
Correct. So it's not a great way to go. Like just, we use the phrase in my office a lot, just pay your bill. Just pay your bill. Or call us, right? Call us, let's set up a payment arrangement. Like let's work with you, but you not communicating with us for all these accounts have to be at least 3 months delinquent and over $150. Right? So this is not a insignificant amount of time or money, but they just refuse to work with us. So we have no other recourse, kind of like we've been talking about this, the theme, no other recourse but to file it with the county.
And then once the county collects it from the taxes, we get that percentage back, and then
Correct.
they keep their markup.
Yeah, so what we do is we basically take the account, if there's any costs of collection, like this year we're doing, my office is gonna do a review, make sure people aren't bankruptcy and things like that, so there'll be a little bit of legal costs on that. We'll spread that evenly out across all of the accounts that are being certified. We'll go to the county will add their 30%. When the taxes are paid, county will take its 30% and give the district, write the district a check. Usually they start in May. And then every month as taxes are paid, the county will just basically keep cracking the district a check for all the property owners. And that'll reimburse the district for the actual account costs plus legal fees. So it's a pretty good deal. And then there was one homeowner that was we've been working with a situation, was that Falcon or is that Paintbrush, where the, not all of the accounts are with Woodman for wastewater.
What do you mean?
When the real estate agent, at closing, the account is not being opened with Woodman, or Woodman's not being notified of closing.
Paintbrush Hills.
Paintbrush.
Yeah.
So we had one customer that, I mean, the way this normally works within the district is district has its boundaries, we record a fee resolution, so anyone that purchases property within the district, gets a notice from their title company saying, hey, here's your service providers. It's a little different for extraterritorial service, and occasionally title companies miss that Woodman Hills is the service provider. So it's possible these properties will have a wastewater connection and they'll be serviced, but they're not getting bills. And then eventually someone will figure it out either through kind of Carter's office auditing these things, or through maybe the property sells and the title company catches it and asks if there's any balance due on the account. There was a closing here where basically the individual hadn't received their bill for a couple months. She had closed on the property, hadn't received the wastewater bill, and wanted the district to write off her wastewater service that she had been using. Yeah, that's usually how that conversation goes.
Because they're like, well, I didn't know about you, and it's like, I didn't know about you either.
Check.
I thought I flushed my toilet and it was magic. I didn't.
Okay. Stacy, anything?
No?
Okay. All right. So, executive session.
Yeah, you can just read it verbatim on there.
All right, so executive session for determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation under CRS 24-6-402 4E, namely reviewing engineering contract services with Kimberly Horn.
Perfect.
And then
Maybe just take a motion. Yep.
Need a motion to enter executive.
Motion to enter executive session.
Second?
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Aye.
motion carries. We'll go into executive session.
We're not underinsured, we're not overinsured, so should get those results here in the next few weeks, and then I'll work with the brokers on how's this gonna impact the liability insurance, and is it gonna increase premiums? What they did say is it wouldn't increase premiums in the existing year, but it's something that could increase premiums in the following year. So,
That's convenient.
yeah, I know. So, but as we get into the budget, later this year, should hopefully have all that information available.
All right. Anything else? All right, nothing else being said. We're up to item 15, adjournment.
Motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any opposed? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are
Aye.
adjourned. Bye, Stacy.
Bye, Stacy.
Bye, Stacy.
Bye.